Admiral Emma Walsh stood at the massive viewing window of the EFSS Prometheus, her hands clasped behind her back. The stars looked different here, at the edge of known space. Each tiny point of light might hold another clue to the mystery that had puzzled humanity for the past decade. Why had all the alien civilizations vanished? The bridge crew worked quietly at their stations, the soft beeping of instruments providing a gentle backdrop to her thoughts. The Prometheus was humanity's newest and most advanced flagship, capable of tearing holes in the fabric of reality itself to travel between stars. Even now, the quantum displacement drive hummed softly through the ship's hull, ready to punch through space-time at a moment's notice. "Admiral," called out Lieutenant Greg Wilson from his sensor station. "We're picking up unusual readings from the fourth planet." His fingers flew across the holographic display, bringing up detailed scans of the rust-colored world below them. Emma walked over to his station, her boots making no sound on the padded deck. "Show me," she ordered, leaning over his shoulder to study the readings. The scans revealed massive structures hidden beneath the planet's red sands, cities that stretched for hundreds of miles, now buried and abandoned. But unlike the other dead worlds they'd found, these ruins were different. They weren't crumbling from age or destroyed by war. They looked as if their inhabitants had simply gotten up and left one day, leaving everything behind. "How old are these structures?" Emma asked, her blue eyes narrowing as she studied the data. Greg checked his instruments again. "That's the strange part, Admiral. According to our scans, they were abandoned roughly 200 years ago." He paused, looking up at her. "That's around the same time Earth developed the first quantum displacement drive." Emma felt a chill run down her spine. This wasn't the first time they'd found this pattern. Across the galaxy, they'd discovered dozens of alien outposts and colonies, all mysteriously abandoned around the time humanity began its first experiments with bending reality for faster-than-light travel. "Contact Dr. Kane," she ordered. "I want his archaeology team ready for deployment within the hour." As the bridge crew carried out her orders, Emma returned to the viewing window. The red planet hung below them like a giant marble, keeping its secrets buried beneath tons of sand and dust. But not for long. 2 hours later, Emma stood in the ship's main hangar, watching as Dr. Robert Kane's team loaded their equipment into the shuttle. The archaeologist was practically bouncing with excitement as he checked his gear one final time. "Remember," Emma said, "you have 6 hours on the surface. At the first sign of trouble, you return immediately." She'd lost too many good people on seemingly routine missions to take any chances. Dr. Kane nodded, his gray eyes serious despite his enthusiasm. "Don't worry, Admiral. We'll be careful." He patted the strange-looking device strapped to his belt. "Besides, we've got the new emergency quantum beacons. If anything goes wrong, you can pull us out instantly." Emma watched as the team boarded their shuttle and launched toward the planet's surface. As the small craft disappeared into the atmosphere, she couldn't shake the feeling that they were about to uncover something big, something that would change humanity's understanding of their place in the galaxy. She was right, but not in the way she expected. The call came 3 hours into the expedition. "Admiral." Dr. Kane's voice crackled through the quantum comm, excitement making it crack. "You need to see this. We've found their records. Actual alien data storage devices, still functional." Emma was already moving toward the teleport pad. "Upload what you can to the ship's computers. I'm coming down." When she materialized on the planet's surface, the first thing she noticed was the scale. The buried city was enormous, its buildings still stretching toward the sky, despite centuries of sand buildup. Dr. Kane met her at the entrance to what appeared to be some kind of control center, his face flushed with discovery. "It's incredible," he said, leading her inside. "They were called the Precursors. At least, that's our best translation. They were one of the eldest spacefaring races, and they were watching us. Admiral, they were watching Earth." Emma followed him to a large room filled with alien computers, their screens still glowing with power after 2 centuries. What did they see? she asked, though something in her gut told her she already knew the answer. Dr. Kane turned to face her, his expression a mix of awe and concern. They saw our first quantum displacement tests, Admiral. And according to these records, he swallowed hard. What they saw terrified them so much that they ran. Dr. Robert Kane sat in the dimly lit research lab aboard the EFSS Prometheus, his eyes burning from staring at alien symbols for hours. The data they'd recovered from the abandoned Precursor city was massive. Holographic displays floated around him, each showing different fragments of the ancient records. "Play it again," he said to the ship's computer. The main screen lit up with a recording they'd found in the alien facility. Strange symbols flowed across the screen while the computer tried its best to translate them. The doors slid open, and Admiral Walsh walked in. She looked tired. They all did after 3 days of non-stop research. "Tell me you found something useful," she said, handing him a cup of coffee. Robert took a grateful sip before nodding. "We have. And honestly, Admiral, it's the strangest thing I've ever seen." He waved his hand, and the main display changed to show what looked like sensor readings. "These are precursor scientific observations of Earth from about 200 years ago." The display showed their solar system, but not like anything humans had ever recorded. The precursors had technology that could see things humans couldn't, layers of reality itself, wrapped around normal space like sheets of paper. "Watch what happens when we conducted our first quantum displacement test," Robert said, moving the recording forward. The image suddenly showed massive tears appearing in these layers, rippling outward from Earth like waves in a pond. "Good Lord," Emma whispered, leaning closer to the display. "Is that what our drives look like to them?" Robert nodded grimly. "To us, quantum displacement is just a useful tool. Punch through space here, come out there. But to them," he shook his head. "Imagine if you saw someone casually ripping holes in reality itself. They had never seen anything like it in their millions of years of space travel." He pulled up another recording, this one showing what appeared to be some kind of emergency meeting. The alien figures moved frantically, pointing at displays showing Earth's solar system. The computer translated their words in a flat, mechanical voice. The young ones tear the veil without understanding. They walk between spaces as children walk through doors. Their ships create void wombs that do not heal. They must be contained before they break everything. Emma's face grew serious. "They thought we were dangerous." "Worse than that," Robert said, bringing up more translations. "They thought we were impossible." The precursors built their entire civilization on the idea that reality was fixed and unchangeable. Then humanity comes along and starts punching holes through it like it's tissue paper. He stood up and walked to another display, this one showing what looked like a star map. "We found references to something called the Grand Assembly, some kind of meeting of all the elder races. These records show they gathered to discuss what to do about Earth." Emma studied the map carefully. "Can you tell where this assembly took place?" Robert shook his head. "Not yet, but we did find something else." He brought up a new recording, this one showing massive fleets of ships preparing to leave their worlds. They didn't just run away in panic. This was organized, coordinated. Every elder race in this sector of the galaxy packed up and left at almost exactly the same time. "Running from us?" Emma asked, though she already knew the answer. "Running from what we represented," Robert corrected. "Their final records are full of predictions about how humanity's cavalier manipulation of space-time would eventually unravel the fabric of the universe itself." He let out a small laugh. "They thought we were going to accidentally destroy reality." Emma was quiet for a long moment, staring at the displays. Finally, she asked, "Could we destroy reality, I mean?" Robert shrugged. "With our current understanding of quantum displacement, not a chance. But that's not what scared them." He brought up one final recording, showing a precursor scientist's last log entry before evacuation. The computer translated. "They do not know what they do. They'd break the laws of existence without care or consequence. And they are learning, growing. What will they be capable of in another century? What bounds will they break next? We cannot stay to find out. The young ones must be left to their own path, even if that path leads to the unraveling of all things. Emma straightened up, her decision made. Send all of this to the analysis team. I want to know everything. Where they went, how many of them there were, and most importantly, if they're still out there somewhere. She turned to leave but paused at the door. And Dr. Kane, good work. Robert nodded, already turning back to the displays. Somewhere in these ancient records lay the answers they needed. He just hoped they could find them before it was too late. Commander Diana Ford rubbed her tired eyes as she stared at the massive wall of data in the Prometheus's analysis center. Her team had been working non-stop for the past week, trying to make sense of the precursor warning beacons they'd found scattered across 3 different star systems. I think I've got something, called out Linda Peters, one of her best code breakers. Come look at this pattern. Diana walked over to Linda's station, where complex alien symbols floated in the air. What did you find? Well, Linda said, highlighting certain sequences, we kept treating these symbols as words, but they're not. They're mathematical formulas describing what our ships do to space itself. Diana leaned closer, her eyes widening as she understood. Can you show me? Linda nodded and pressed a few buttons. The symbols transformed into a 3-dimensional model of space-time. This is what normal space looks like to them. She pressed another button, and a tiny ship appeared. And this is what happens when one of our ships uses its quantum drive. The model showed reality itself folding and twisting like paper in a windstorm. Massive ripples spread out from the ship's path, bending the fabric of space in ways that should have been impossible. Get Admiral Walsh down here now, Diana ordered. Within minutes, Emma Walsh strode into the analysis center, Dr. Kane following close behind. Show them, Diana said to Linda, who repeated her demonstration. Those ripples, Dr. Kane said, pointing at the model. They spread across light years, don't they? Linda nodded. According to these formulas, every time we use a quantum drive, we send waves through reality that the precursors could detect from anywhere in the galaxy. To them, it must have looked like we were tearing the universe apart. Admiral Walsh watched the simulation with a frown. But we're not actually damaging anything, are we? No, Diana said quickly. It's more like, imagine you lived your whole life thinking water was solid, and then you saw someone swimming. That's what we looked like to them. They thought reality was fixed and unchangeable, but we proved it wasn't. Dr. Kane pulled up the latest translations from the abandoned city. That matches what we found in their records. Look at this. He displayed a new set of symbols. This isn't just a warning beacon. It's a message to other precursor races. The computer began translating. The young ones have achieved the impossible. They fold space as we fold paper. They step through tears in reality as we step through doorways. Their ships leave wounds in the cosmos that echo across the stars. We cannot stay. We dare not stay. To witness the impossible is to question all that we know to be true. There's more, Linda said, bringing up another section. They were monitoring our development. They watched us go from simple radio signals to our first quantum displacement tests in less than 2 centuries. The speed of our progress terrified them almost as much as what we could do. Admiral Walsh was quiet for a moment, thinking. Can you use these formulas to track them? She asked finally. Diana nodded slowly. Maybe. If their ships left behind any kind of energy signature, we might be able to follow their path. The quantum ripples they were so afraid of actually leave a kind of map in space-time. We could use it to see where they went. Do it, Emma ordered. I want every sensor on this ship recalibrated based on what we've learned. If the precursors are still out there, we need to find them. Admiral, Dr. Kane said hesitantly, are you sure that's wise? These beings flood from us in terror. Emma turned to face him. which is exactly why we need to find them. They ran because they didn't understand us, because they were afraid of what we might become. She looked around the room at her crew. It's time we showed them that humanity's ability to reshape reality isn't a threat. It's an opportunity. An opportunity for all of us to grow beyond what we thought was possible. Diana turned back to her station, feeling a new sense of purpose. They weren't just solving a mystery anymore. They were working to bridge a gap between two fundamentally different ways of seeing the universe. She just hoped the precursors would be willing to listen when they finally found them. "Linda," she called out, "start with the formulas for quantum wake detection. If we can understand how they saw our ships, maybe we can use the same principles to find theirs." The hunt was on. Captain Stephen Morris stood on the bridge of the HFY Hyperion, watching his sensor screens with intense focus. After 3 weeks of searching, they had finally found something promising. "Admiral Walsh," he called over the quantum comm, "we're picking up those energy patterns you told us to look for. They're faint, but they're definitely artificial." The Admiral's voice crackled back through the comm. "How old are they, Captain?" Stephen checked the readings again. "That's the interesting part. They're not old at all. These signatures are fresh. Maybe a few days at most." There was a long pause before Emma responded. "Are you saying what I think you're saying, Captain?" "Yes, Mom," Stephen said, his heart racing. "The precursors didn't just run away 200 years ago. They're still running. And now we know which way they went." Within an hour, the entire battle group had gathered around the Hyperion's position. 5 massive ships, each capable of tearing holes in reality itself. Stephen watched from his bridge as they formed up, their quantum drives humming with power. "All ships, report in." Admiral Walsh's voice came through clear and strong. "EF's Hyperion, ready," Stephen responded. "EF's Titan, ready. EF's Aurora, ready. EF's Orion, ready." One by one, the ships confirmed their status. They were about to attempt something never done before. A synchronized quantum jump by multiple ships, following the energy trail of the precursor vessels. "Remember," Emma's voice carried across all channels, "we're not here to frighten them further. Our goal is to make contact and show them we mean no harm. Weapons stay powered down unless absolutely necessary." Stephen turned to his sensor officer, Lisa Chen. "How's that tracking algorithm working?" Lisa adjusted some controls on her panel. "It's doing better than expected, sir. Commander Ford's team really outdid themselves. I can see the precursor ship's path through space-time like a glowing trail." "All ships," Admiral Walsh's voice cut in, "prepare for synchronized quantum jump in 30 seconds. Remember, we're not just following them through normal space. According to the data we found, they're using some kind of advanced faster-than-light drive that leaves minimal disturbance in reality." Stephen couldn't help but smile at the irony. The very beings who feared humanity's reality-breaking technology were about to be pursued by it. "Quantum jump in 10 seconds, the ship's computer announced. Stephen gripped his command chair tightly. No matter how many times they did this, the moment before a quantum jump always felt strange. 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. Reality twisted around them. The normal stars disappeared, replaced by streams of impossible colors as 5 human ships tore through the fabric of space-time together. Through the quantum comm, Stephen could hear the other captains reporting their status. When they emerged, they found themselves in a region of space none of them had ever seen before. Strange stars burned in unfamiliar patterns, and nearby, a massive purple nebula stretched across half the visible sky. "Status report," Emma demanded. "The trail is stronger here," Lisa reported from her station. "Much stronger. They came through this way no more than 12 hours ago." Stephen studied his tactical display. "Admiral, based on these readings, we're gaining on them. Their drives don't seem to be as efficient as ours when it comes to long-distance travel. Because they're trying not to disturb space-time." Dr. Kane's voice joined the conversation. They're taking the long way around, so to speak, while we're cutting straight through. All ships, prepare for another jump, Emma ordered. We're getting close. I want all crews ready for first contact protocols, the moment we catch up to them. Stephen turned to his communications officer. Make sure our translation systems are ready. When we find them, we need to be able to talk. The battle group made 3 more jumps over the next few hours, each time getting closer to their quarry. The energy trail was growing stronger, fresher. Finally, during their 4th jump, Lisa shouted, "Contact! Multiple vessels ahead." As they emerged from quantum space, Stephen saw them. A vast fleet of alien ships, their designs unlike anything humanity had ever seen. They were beautiful, all curves and flowing lines, without a single sharp angle anywhere. And they were running. Lieutenant Rachel Cooper stared at her sensor screens aboard the EFSS Prometheus, her hands trembling slightly. The Precursor fleet spread out before them was enormous, hundreds of ships, each one larger than anything humanity had ever built. Energy spike. She called out, watching as readings jumped across her display. They're powering up weapons systems. Admiral Walsh stood calmly at the center of the bridge. Hold positions. Make no aggressive moves. She turned to her communications officer. Broadcast on all frequencies, using the translation patterns we developed. Rachel watched her sensors carefully as the message went out. The Precursor ships had formed a defensive wall, their weapons ready but not firing. Through her advanced quantum sensors, she could see something else too. The alien ships were sending ripples of panic through space-time itself, like frightened animals disturbing the surface of a pond. "Admiral," she said, I think they're terrified of us." Before Emma could respond, one of the Precursor ships vanished, using their own version of faster-than-light travel. But seconds later, it reappeared, tumbling in space. "What just happened?" Emma demanded. Rachel checked her readings. "Our quantum displacement drives. They're affecting local space-time so much that their FTL systems can't work properly. We're literally changing the rules of physics around us without even trying." Through the massive bridge windows, they could see the alien fleet more clearly now. Their ships were beautiful, like crystalline sculptures floating in space. But they were also old, incredibly old. The sensors showed signs of repairs and modifications going back thousands of years. "Movement in the Precursor fleet," Rachel reported. "There?" She paused, double-checking her readings. "They're backing away from us. All of them. In perfect synchronization." Emma stepped forward. "Show me their fleet pattern." A holographic display appeared in the center of the bridge. The Precursor ships had arranged themselves in a complex geometric pattern, like a massive snowflake in space. As they watched, the pattern shifted and changed, but always maintained its perfect symmetry. "It's not just a formation," Dr. Kane said from his station. "It's a message. They're showing us order, pattern, structure, everything they believe in, everything they think we're destroying." Suddenly, Rachel's sensors screamed with new data. "Admiral, they're doing something with their combined energy fields, creating some kind of reality lens." The space between the two fleets began to twist and distort. Through the distortion, they could see images, countless alien worlds, civilizations that had existed for millions of years, all built on the precise and predictable laws of physics. And then they showed what humanity's quantum drives looked like to them. Violent tears in the fabric of reality, spreading chaos through their ordered universe. "They're not just showing us their weapons," Rachel said quietly. "They're showing us their fear." Emma stood silent for a long moment, watching the display. Finally, she turned to her crew. "Power down the quantum drives," she ordered. "All ships." "Admiral," Rachel asked, surprised. "Without the drives running, we'll be stuck here." "Exactly," Emma said. "We're showing them trust, showing them that we can choose not to break reality." She turned to communications. "Send them images of Earth. Show them our cities, our art, our children. Show them we're not destroyers. We're explorers. Rachel watched as the message was sent. For several tense minutes, nothing happened. Then, slowly, the geometric pattern of the Precursor fleet began to change. The weapons' signatures faded. New energy reading, Rachel reported, her voice filled with wonder. They're creating some kind of stable space-time bubble between our fleets, I think. She looked up at Admiral Walsh. I think they're inviting us to talk. Emma nodded. Sometimes, she said softly, the best way to handle someone's fear isn't to prove them wrong. It's to show them they're safe. The bridge crew watched as a small shuttle emerged from the center of the Precursor fleet, heading for the stable zone they'd created. After 200 years of running, after crossing countless light years of space, humanity and the Precursor races were finally going to meet. Rachel looked down at her sensors one last time. The ripples of panic in spacetime had changed. They weren't chaotic anymore. They had become something else, something that looked almost like hope. Dr. Amy Martinez took slow, careful breaths as she prepared to board the shuttle that would take her to the meeting point. As the fleet's lead diplomatic specialist, she had trained for first contact scenarios her entire career. But nothing had prepared her for this. Remember, Admiral Walsh said, standing next to her in the Prometheus's shuttle bay, they're not just afraid of our technology. They're afraid of what we represent: change, chaos, the unknown. Amy nodded, checking her translation device one last time. I understand, Admiral. We need to show them that change doesn't always mean destruction. The shuttle ride was short but tense. Through the windows, Amy could see the strange bubble of stable space-time the Precursors had created, a neutral zone where both sides could meet safely. Inside the bubble, the quantum ripples that usually surrounded human ships were calm and quiet. Their shuttle docked with what looked like a floating crystal palace, a temporary meeting station the Precursors had grown in just minutes. Amy walked through the airlock, her heart pounding. The inside of the station was beautiful. The walls seemed to be made of living crystal that hummed with soft light, and waiting for her in the central chamber were three beings that made her stop in her tracks. The Precursors were tall, their bodies seeming to shift between solid and energy forms. They wore no clothes or equipment that she could see, but complex patterns of light moved across their surfaces like living circuits. I am Amy Martinez, she said clearly, letting her translation device project her words into patterns of light and energy that the Precursors could understand. I represent humanity and the Terran Defense Fleet. The tallest of the three beings stepped forward. Its response came as a mixture of light patterns and subtle vibrations in the crystal walls. We are the eternal consensus. We have run from you for 200 of your years. Amy nodded. We know. We found your abandoned cities, your warning beacons. We learned that our quantum displacement drives frightened you. Frighten. The Precursor's lights flickered rapidly. Your species tears holes in the fabric of reality itself. You treat the fundamental laws of existence as mere suggestions. How can such chaos be allowed? Amy thought carefully before responding. May I show you something? When they agreed, she pulled out a small holographic projector. It displayed an image of a human child learning to walk. The child falls many times, she explained. Each fall seems like chaos, like failure. But through these moments of chaos, the child learns, grows, becomes more than they were. The Precursors watched the image in silence. Their light patterns swirled with complex emotions that Amy's translators couldn't quite decode. When we first developed quantum displacement technology, she continued, we didn't fully understand it. Yes, we made tears in spacetime. But like the child learning to walk, each tear taught us more. Now we can control it better, shape it more carefully. The second Precursor moved forward. Your species embraces change, seeks it out. This is why you are dangerous. Change brings disorder. Disorder leads to destruction. Amy smiled gently. Change also leads to growth, to new possibilities. She brought up another image, Earth's solar system. 200 years ago, We were trapped in one star system. Now we can explore the galaxy, meet new beings, learn new ways of thinking. The third precursor, who had been silent until now, created a complex pattern of lights that made the translator buzz with effort. You do not fear breaking reality itself. We fear doing it wrongly, Amy answered honestly. This is why we study, why we learn, why we seek out those with greater knowledge. She looked directly at them. Like you. The three precursors moved closer together, their light patterns merging and shifting as they communicated among themselves. Amy waited patiently, her heart still racing, but now with hope rather than fear. Finally, the first precursor spoke again. For 1,000,000 years, we believed reality was fixed, unchangeable. Your existence proves this wrong. Perhaps its lights dimmed slightly. Perhaps we have been running from the wrong thing. Perhaps we should have been running toward understanding instead. Amy felt tears in her eyes as she smiled. Then let's understand together. You can teach us about the patterns and structures you've discovered over millions of years. And we can show you that sometimes breaking the rules isn't about destruction. It's about finding new ways to build. For the first time, the Precursor's light patterns showed something that looked almost like wonder. Admiral Emma Walsh stood in the great crystal hall aboard the Precursor flagship, surrounded by representatives from both fleets. After 2 weeks of careful talks, they were ready to make history. The chamber itself was a marvel of alien engineering. Its walls shifted and flowed like liquid crystal, displaying the combined fleet outside. Human ships of steel and titanium floating alongside the organic-looking vessels of the Precursor races. Your proposal is unprecedented, said the first speaker of the Eternal Consensus, its body glowing with patterns of blue and gold light. Never in our history have we considered sharing quantum manipulation knowledge with a younger race. Emma nodded, keeping her voice steady. And never in our history have we had the chance to learn from those who have watched over the galaxy for millions of years. Dr. Amy Martinez stood beside her, the translator device working smoothly now after days of improvements. Around them, other precursor races had gathered, some looking like living crystal, others like pure energy, and some with forms that human eyes could barely understand. "Show us again," requested a being of shifting silver light. "Show us how your ships move through space." Emma nodded to Captain Stephen Morris, who gave the order through his comm unit. Outside the Crystal Hall, the EFSS Hyperion powered up its quantum drive. But this time, instead of tearing through reality, the ship created a gentle fold in spacetime, slipping through it like a fish through water. The Precursor's light patterns rippled with surprise. "Such control," the first speaker said. "In mere days, you have already learned to soften your touch upon reality." "Because you taught us how," Emma replied. "Your understanding of space-time's fundamental patterns helped us refine our technology. Imagine what else we could learn from each other." Dr. Robert Kane stepped forward, holding a data crystal the Precursors had given him. "And your archaeological records. They're incredible. Millions of years of galaxy history, all preserved perfectly. We could spend centuries just learning about the civilizations you've encountered." The first speaker's glow shifted to a deep purple, yet you still wish to continue exploring, to push the boundaries of what is known. "It's who we are," Emma said simply. "But now we can explore with wisdom instead of just curiosity. You can help us understand the consequences of our actions before we take them." A ripple of communication passed through the gathered precursors. Finally, the first speaker moved to the center of the hall. Its form grew brighter, casting rainbow patterns across the crystal walls. "We have made our decision," it announced. "The Eternal Consensus will end its exodus. We will return to our ancient homes, not to hide from humanity, but to guide them, to teach them, and perhaps," its lights flickered with what Emma had learned was their version of amusement, "to learn from them as well." Emma felt a weight lift from her shoulders. "Then let me be the first to officially welcome you back to known space." The crystal hall filled with light as the Precursors expressed their approval. Outside, the combined fleet began to move, human and precursor ships taking formation together. There will be much to do, Amy said, checking her notes. Other human ships to contact, evacuation orders to re-signed, diplomatic protocols to establish, and research to conduct, Dr. Kane added eagerly. The precursors have offered to teach us about 11 different forms of space-time manipulation we never even imagined were possible. Emma smiled as she watched her crew interact with the ancient beings. Fear had turned to curiosity, and curiosity had become understanding. Their reality-shattering battle group had indeed changed the universe, not through force or destruction, but by breaking down the barriers of fear itself. Admiral Walsh, the first speaker, called to her. "We have a question about human customs. When your species achieves something significant, how do you celebrate?" Emma grinned. "Well," she said, "first we usually share a meal together. Though I'm not sure what precursors eat." The first speaker's lights danced with colors Emma had never seen before. "Perhaps we can start with something simpler. Tell us more about this human concept of friendship." As Emma began to explain, she realized that this was humanity's true strength. Not their ability to break reality, but their willingness to reach across the gulf of fear and misunderstanding, to turn ancient enemies into new friends. The universe, it seemed, still had plenty of surprises left for everyone.